over the decades, configurations have changed a little bit. I mean, I can remember back coming to Nashville, and you saw people with hanging floor toms back in the day, right? So then it went to the bigger sets, and then the smaller sets, and then, you know, less drums, but bigger, less drums, right? So just talk about your particular setup and what you've seen and what you've done either to adapt to the times or even stand out over the decades as far as configurations are concerned, Keio.
When I first moved here, the 10, 12, 14, 16, 22, two crashes, splash, ride, China, you know, that was a thing. And then things made the move to, as the music got slower, I know it sounds silly to say that, but the music did get slower for country music. The drums got bigger. And so people started doing 13, 24, 16s. So it's kind of funny. I would go from like 1 year, I did Hank Jr. and Big and Rich the same year. And with Hank Jr., it was 13, 22, 16, 26 with ride cymbal, 18 hats. And then Big and Rich, it was 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 concert toms, 2 22s, 2 26s.
Damn.
One snare drum. And only 3 cymbals for that gig too. But it was what was needed for the gig, musically and for the stage.
And just a quick show of hands. I know Ray's answer on this one is going to be reference 1, but we just introduced a whole new line of high-end drums called High End Reimagined. But just a quick show of hands. Who here has experienced or currently playing the new Masters Maple Gum? Just a quick show of hands. Oh, yeah. It seems like the overwhelming favorite now is that Masters Maple Gum. Now, Russ, I know you're a fan favorite of that. And talking about that shell and your configuration out on the road, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm about to change it up again. I've had some pretty elaborate drum sets through the years, and it's complete overkill for my gig. I brought a double bass kit out as a joke with all these cymbals and toms and stuff and big rack and everything. And Craig comes out on stage, and then Craig's, I like that, it stays. And I was like, now I gotta lug all his gear around all the time, you know, because he likes the look of it. And honestly, all the big kits I've done were mostly cosmetic only. It's not needed for the gig at all, and I might have hit it. The problem is when I got that much stuff, I want to swing at it. You know what I mean? So I've kind of, this year I decided to go back to the 13, 16 or 12, 16, 24, back to a 4-piece again. And honestly, I've jumped back and forth through the years because I've been on the gig for so long. I've played the same songs so many times. It forces me to look at the song and play the song differently. It makes me rethink songs that have maybe gotten a little stale for me that I've played so many times to just, they're new again, you know? And honestly, I'm a gear nerd, so I like whatever you guys are coming out with. I want to play that. And the Maple Gum is what I have out right now.
And you're a road warrior. So a bunch of you here are road dogs, and you spend a lot of time with this gear out. Talk about the dependability that you feel and that confidence that the Pearl products are going to hold up gig after gig, country, doesn't matter. If you see Pearl, you feel that it's going to be there, it's going to be stable, rock solid, whether it's the hardware or the drums. Talk to me a little bit about that. Chuck, let's go back to you. I knew you were going to say something.
I got to say something. And I know the guys in the warehouse, it's been a kind of a running joke now for 30-something years, but I still have hardware from the late 80s and early 90s that I originally got, and it's still good. It's still fun. It's functional. I still use it. I have different kits spread all over town at different studios and whatnot. And this is hardware I used to do tours with. So they were doing hundreds of days a year, you know, getting torn down and set up all these times. But I still have hardware that still works just fine. There's snare stands, boom stands, even kick drum pedal. I have the original kick drum pedal, the power shifter when it first came out. I still have original models of that still work just fine. You know, I've maybe replaced a couple little parts on them, but the hardware has been incredibly durable all these years. I mean, I've got new stuff too and all that stuff, but I have to have so many different rigs around town, you know, cartage kits, 2 or 3 kits in cartage or whatnot, and then other road kits, and all of it is I've never gotten rid of anything that I've ever bought or been given. I've got everything I've ever had from 30 years ago, and over 30 years ago. The hardware is just you can't tear it up. It doesn't. It's so durable, and I'm sure Ray and some other guys can vouch for that.
And Ken, you roll your kit pretty much right on and off the truck, already assembled. It takes a beating,
Yes, sir.
but you're pretty much ready to go at any gig, right?
The way our pack works for the tour is everything. I think just the rack tom gets pulled off and the cymbals, and everything else just kind of goes onto the truck. So I use a rack for that, and literally the only thing we've ever had to replace in 3 years are lug locks. Other than that, literally everything rides the way, and some of our guys like to go off-roading, apparently.
Yeah.
Tony goes, I think the backline truck goes off-loading.
Yeah.
Go off-roading. But he, literally, he's true. It's a testament to that gear that, it rides across the country in the back of a truck, and we all know how things just do that. And they pull it right off and off just for fun, even though I know the answer. Hey, man, how'd everything ride? Perfect.
that.
That's my tech. Perfect. Easy.
I had a
Chuck?
7-year period where I was touring with a Canadian artist. So I never used my own personal kit. It was always Backline, always Pearl, and always consistent. I never had to worry about anything, even though for 7 years or so, I'm like, okay, what's the kit du jour? What's it gonna look like? I got to play all the colors.
Man, and I have to sort of second that. I can be in Argentina or Poland or Romania or Hong Kong, Japan. It's always a consistent kit. The drums are great. Everything just makes sense, and at least that's one little piece of home.
Yeah.
Because it's Australia, what have you. We had a backline company in Italy, and the kit I used out there for a couple of months. It's just the consistency of the product and the quality of the product is so high, and it's so available across the world.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing like TV stuff,
Yep.
that's already a stressful thing. But if you know your backline is going to be that's one less thing to worry about. And I remember a rite of passage that I kind of look back on now. When you're with a new artist, your rider does not exist. There is no drum rider. You're getting whatever they have.
Yeah.
And man, I'm not gonna name companies, but there were certain ones you're like, oh geez, this sucks. I need a PhD to set the snare drum stand and the cymbal stand. And it's like, what are they doing? Overcomplicated.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
Pearl stuff.
We all know that. And then it doesn't
Figure it
work.
out. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then what I love, and I love telling people this, the lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
That's me. That's Billy Joe Jim Bob down the street. Or the kid that just bought an export kit. Something breaks, he gets it replaced. Come on. How can you beat that? And like Chuck was talking about hardware, my first kit that I got, in 1999, the hi-hat stand is still with the kit that I have at home. The drum throne's still there. I still have the bass drum pedal, still have the snare drum. Come on. I look at that stuff like, that has been as long as I've been married, which maybe the hardware is more dependable than the marriage. But regardless, it's still there.
All right, Tracy, you're hired. When this drumming thing doesn't work out for you, we'll bring you on the marketing
Always
team
looking
here.
for plan B. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's great.
still play the snare drum my dad bought me 39 years ago. It is it's the number one snare drum. It's the one I play every day.
Well, that's a great lead into the next subject. Let's talk about snare drums.
All right. Woo.
All right, so here's a question that's going to give you a moment to think. If you have to have just one snare drum, just one, show of hands, would it be metal or would it be wood? Would it be metal? How about that? Okay, overwhelming. So, Eddie, what's a metal go-to for you if you had to have a metal drum?
Actually, my Sensitones, the new ones. I love it. I still have my Ferrone.
Oh,
Yeah.
bingo.
Yes, sir.
That by far, in every instant,
Yeah.
just sails through. And of course, all my 70s and 80s were the maple 6.5 that Larry gave me. But the Ferrone and actually, you guys made me a 5.5 maple gum. It was special. It took a while, but man, that is an incredible snare. So if I need wood, I'll go to that. But other than that, I'd say overall, Ferrone just sails through.
Chris Myers?
I mean, I was going to say the Ferrone as well, to be honest, for all-time pearl snares. But nowadays, I've been using the hybrid exotic. I think it's a great prototype, a hybrid of things, like the name itself. And it's kind of like modeled after the, the Black Beauty-esque, family. But the Ferrone, there's something special about the, I don't know if it's the, the casting, like the actual hoops or the metal itself, like the combination of it. It just sings and it cracks too, and it's got the body and everything.
The diversity in tuning is what's special.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us all have snares, but they're better off in the mid or high.
Right.
But the Ferrone,
The,
you got the full game.
Now, Ray, you did some videos for us on the Sensitone Heritage Alloys. You got a chance to preview them all.
Yeah.
And that black nickel over brass version that we have, which is a similar shell that everyone's talking about. Talk about your experience with those models. And
Yeah, I
what
don't know if you
think.
remember, but you guys couldn't pull me off. I'm not a 5-inch guy. I always go 6.5 at least. And that for that shoot, we had that 5 up, and we did the first song. And my tech goes, "You can leave that up." And I go, "Well, if we're leave that on, like leave that. I don't even want the 6.5 up." And that's weird because I love deeper snares like that. They're all winners because it's not as funny as most inks are. But that's definitely a go-to now. I'd say the 6.5. That's my main, but also the free-floating brass snare. I've used it on so many records recently. It's on the new Mick Mars record. It's gonna be on the new KORN record. I mean, that thing sings to me. So that's like one of my favorite of all times.
Yeah.
cool.
Anybody else on snare drums?
My go-to the past few years is GyroLocks. I've got 6.5 by 14. That's my desert island drum. That's my go-to. I literally have played nothing else on the road than that drum, which is sad because the Sensitone's a backup and it just sits there. And I feel bad sometimes I go up and talk to it and I apologize to it. But no, it just sits there. I really do. I go up to the kid and I'm like, man, that sucks. That thing's just sitting there. But the GyroLocks is just when we were talking about snare drums and I hit one of those. And I was taken about. I was just, wow, okay, that's the one. And I like it because the versatility. You can tune it up, you can tune it down. We usually middle of the road tuning for live, and I'm yet to get one in the studio. I can't. I really one day grab one and take it home. But man, I tell you, I haven't tried. I haven't tried any other side. The other size on the 6.5 by 14. That's my go-to. That's the one for me right now. So, for you, whenever that came out.
My go-to is the Ian Pace.
Ooh.
I am
That's a good one.
huge. If that's the only snare I could use, I would use that, especially with the muffling system. I basically call it like a Sensitone on steroids. And it's it has the lug locks. You can lock it top and bottom, and the tuning range is real. It's vast, like it's a large tuning range on it, but it has that crack, the ring. If you need something that's gushy, you can get that quick. But I think a lot of people sleep on that snare drum, but that's one of my favorites.
Good choice. Our signature line, including the Ian drum, is fantastic. So, anybody else on snares? Yeah, Russ.
The aluminum Sensitone.
Yep. Yeah. I was just about to say the same thing.
6.5.
Aluminum Sensitone. I'm the 5. You using the 6.5? I haven't tried the 6.5 yet, but a drum that's still in production. The only thing I changed is I put cast hoops on it, and the thing is just I've got 3 of them, and that's all I use. But I do have my favorite. One snare I would take with me to the grave is my Ultracast. That's my number one all-time favorite drum.
Yeah.
By far. And it's aluminum as well. Just a thicker, solid shell. They all black Ultracast. That's that. And if I can't get that, it's the Sensatone aluminum, hands down. All fives, which like Ray, I've always liked deeper snare drums, but something about fives here lately, man. That's all I'm thinking.
That's a special drum. Now let's turn to wood now, and I think all of you are familiar with our Music City custom solid shell snare drums that we have, and I know Eddie, you are as well. Is there a particular wood flavor that you lean towards that's coming out of the Music City custom shop?
Still maple.
Yep.
Go to.
That seems to be the one that fits in all scenario for me.
Excellent. Anybody else on snares?
I was just say, I typically it's Sensatone brass, but I have the Music City in maple. I forget what the inlay is. It's gorgeous. But I got that, I think it was 2 years ago. We were doing a string of theater dates. I just fell in love with it. It's a gorgeous drum, sounds great. And I'd use it typically mostly for TV shows, but it sings.
Good deal.
Gorgeous drums.
And as far as like the drum that some people may sleep on is the steel. But like if you're doing like a funky kind of track where it's got a ring or it's like a James Brown thing, the steel drums really work well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot like what he was saying, you know, that for certain applications. And that reference brass snare drum, I played at Passig one year. They just had it with the Music City custom kit, and it was amazing. So there's a Sensatone in the car right now.
Same.
That's the way it is.
Always.
Don't tell anybody that. But it lives in the car.
Yeah, I still have my dad in '97 in high school bought me 3.5 by 14 free floater steel.
Yeah.
That I use a lot, and then I stopped using it, and then when I started back using it, when I learned how to tune, I have it kind of tuned in this mid frequency area, and the girth that you get from it, along obviously with the snap and crack, especially in the studio, it's just, I mean, it's kind of a retro sound.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, it's so versatile. I've only had to have one thing fixed on it from '97 till now, so it's an incredible.
But what the audience isn't seeing right now is that there's a lot of note taking that's going on behind the cameras as you guys are talking. So Pearl is listening right now. So thank you for all those comments. Now we just introduced a revolutionary big left turn for Pearl as far as hardware is concerned, and that is the GyroLock L-Arm. We've never done an L-Arm before. And summer last year, we introduced this. Now, show of hands, how many of you have experienced or utilized the GyroLock L-Arm so far? Okay, so about half. So our traditional 7/8" pipe tom arm is something that we've been known for. And then we went to this GyroLock L. I know, Ray, we utilized you in the studio with that as well. So just comments on this departure from the norm for Pearl with the GyroLock L. Who would like to start?
I loved it. And I showed up to this video shoot for Zildjian and Big Firth, and I didn't realize that they were on the kit. So I'm tuning the drums, and I realized, like, at some point, I was like, man, it's really quick and easy tuning these for some reason, because, at times I would often deal with, maybe the drum choking or whatever because of where I'm tuning it. And I just thought, man, it's really easy.
That R2 air suspension system and the GyroLock L, that pairing seems to be a big fan favorite right now. Des, you had something to say?
I've never been a L-Arm guy. I got used to the regular arm that Pearl uses. But the ease of motion and being able to feel like, hey, I can always, once I lock it, just lock and forget, set it and forget it. The how it's even made, I don't know the specs, but the inside of it, it literally doesn't break. Like, it doesn't break down. I haven't noticed it breaking down. I've been touring with my kid for probably the last 5, 6, 7 months. The engineer, the tour I was on, I played 10, 12, 16. And I ended up playing the same run again with 13, 16. And the engineer was like, is this the same? I'm like, this is the exact same kit, different toms. And I asked them, I'm always a nerd for figuring out what's on the front of the house, how is it being mixed or whatever. And I asked him, I said, can I see your faders? Can I see the EQ? And he was like, it's it. It's the same thing we had from last time. So that essentially helped the tonal aspect of the drums.
That R2 air suspension system and that tuning range, and I've heard multiple comments about having the variety of tuning ranges, I think is very important. Tommy, you want to talk about some of your experiences as of late, maybe in the studio, having a wide array of tuning range options, and when you would apply those necessarily in a studio situation?
Well, I mean, I've only just recently come back to Pearl. I will say this, I've unboxed a lot of kits in my career, and usually you unbox a kit, you hit it, and you're like, you got to kind of let the drum open up. You got to give it a little grace period, and then after a while it opens up. It's kind of like a guitar, I guess. We just did a CMT Giants special and got the kit like 3 days before. Unboxed it. I hit these toms. Dude, I'm like, holy mackerel! I've never had this happen before. They sounded unbelievable right out of the box, and my drum tech freaked out, and the front of house guy freaked out. So, and it was amazing.
That's exactly what. So I'd seen him earlier in that day. Remember, they were in the back of your car, and he's like, "Man, I'm gonna go. We were talking about, we were doing something together, and I said, "Man, you're gonna love these maple gum." We were talking about maple gum. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna box them today." So I was like, "Man, well, let me know what you think." And I texted him later, and I said, "Man, what'd you think?" He goes, "Unbelievable." That's it. One word, unbelievable. And that's exactly what he just said.
Mind
Same
blowing.
exact thing.
I had that. It's not with the hardware, but in terms of on the Reba tour, the first half of the Reba tour, I was playing a birch kit. Then the second half, I switched to the maple gum. And the front of house guy, he's kind of oblivious to what kind of kit I had. But he came to me after the first show, after I switched to the maple gum. He's like, "Dude, you were like in the red all night long. What happened?" I'm like, "I didn't do anything. It's these drums are just projecting more. It's just the drums, man."
Yeah. Wow.
I'm using the
Cool thing
L-Arms this
too.
year. I'm gonna try them this year. I'm really excited to try that.
Yeah, they're great for touring. I mean, makes things easier for you to feel it better too. Like you were saying, vibrations through the drum into the hardware is a thing. I mean, especially for studio drummers, which is why they use those rims mounts, et cetera, for years. You guys created finally something where it's that sort of direction, which makes it feel more boutique than even while it's still solid and still great. And it feels good. Also looks great. You can even like cut those bars to size if you want, and they get more of the flash put on the drums. The scope of the
That voids the warranty, by the way.
it voids the warranty. Well, we're gonna go ahead and edit that. No, but the point is that even for your drum tech too, he or she can configure it from the front and the back easily, and it makes everything easier.
I'm really psyched to try these. I have 2 maple gum kits that are sister kits. They're identical. One's in cartage, one's in my studio. And I use a rack, just a front rack. And I do that because I place the drums a little differently. So in order to do that, I have to use the rack. And it also makes it easier for my cartage guy to get a consistent setup. Because if we're moving, I just don't have time to. And I have nightmares about my drums not being set up right on a date. But anyway, the cool thing about these is now I can sort of get this jigsaw puzzle working with the L-Arm in ways that I couldn't with the standard tubing, even though I really thought that was just a simple kind of foolproof design, and it still is. But this is more adjustable in terms of how it can relate to the rack or the tom, the stand itself, as opposed to we would just have to kind of pull it, and we couldn't because the rims, you couldn't go but so far, and you wanted it on the very end of it because that would keep it from choking up. So I'm psyched to try this.
We were shooting a video with Ray, and I remember, Ray, you had a similar experience when we were having to tune the drums, and you even mentioned that it's so easy just to pop that right off.
And remember Nick Raskulinix, obviously one of the biggest rock producers out there. and my dear friend, he's super uber picky about drum tones. In fact, so much that the 2 records I did with him, he would tune the drums right before I'd go to take, just because he's so anal about everything. And I don't know if you remember that shoot. He come over, he's like, "This hurts my brain," because he's so used to Pearl seeing that hole going into the shell. And he's like, "What is this? And this is the coolest thing ever." And he was just staring at it, and then he goes, "I think it sounds better." Like like everything just came together in this really cool way. So when you impress a producer like him with a L-Arm, it's pretty cool.
Exactly.
The R2 air suspension system, man, like, I don't know how you guys did it, but it's so unobtrusive. Like, you don't even see it.
Yeah.
And we've seen some crappy mountains. We all have.
Yeah.
But you guys just totally changed the game.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, how'd they do it?
Yeah.
Because you think, man, it's already great.
We're happy
when
to
you
hear
hit it,
that.
it doesn't move. That was a problem with certain things. When you hit it, starts doing that, it's like,
Yeah, the one that was the acronym.
oh, yep. It doesn't move, but also with the mobility of this new system, you have just we all know what it feels like when something is just literally a fraction of an inch off. And sometimes you're like, something's not right. You're swinging and you're like, man, it's 12 and it's 10 or 13 and 12 or whatever. And something, and then when you go to move something, it moves too far. Yeah. But with this new system, you get like this total, and then once you get it wherever you're going to put it, doesn't move. So
and it's not sticking out from the rim.
Right.
So if you want to get your toms closer together,
Yeah.
you can.
It seems like everybody, the overwhelming favorite as far as the shell recipe, the maple gum, whether it's live or studio. Now, a couple of you talked about the reference series and the reference pure series of past, and now it's the reference one, which is the combination of all the good things of what reference was and reference pure. And I know that you had some experience, Ray, and with Nick in the studio on the reference one particularly. What's your comments on when you experienced and played that kit for the first time?
Man, just straight up from when you put the head on, right away it sings. There's not a lot of messing with it. Not a lot of, Nick likes that bottom head really tight compared to the top. It's kind of an odd thing, but he loves the attack with the boom. And he's like, he said, I spent the least amount of time on this kit than I think I ever have. So that was a huge plus, right away. He just sang instantly. The 18, that bottom end that thing had blew us all away. Like, with the EQ settings inside the control room, I was looking at everything he had. He goes, look where everything's at. Everything's flat right now, the assistant. And that's pretty cool, to hear that. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Final comments on just Pearl in general, whether it's the company, the gear, the people, combination, or none of the above. But just a few random comments, if you don't mind. We'll start over here. I know, Keio, you got your mouth open.
Yeah, I'm mouth's open. Yeah. What's fun about Pearl is, one, my first drum kit, probably my last drum kit. But the one thing that Pearl provides for all of us is comfort. And when you see Pearl gear, you see Pearl employees, it's all comfort. But it's really cool though. It's nice to be a part of something and see something and have a product that when you see it, you go, oh, okay, I'm good. I know I'm gonna be all right. So,
anybody else?
Yeah, I'll dive in. I started out marching Pearl in 1988 in Suncoast Sound. I marched on a Pearl snare drum. I didn't have a Pearl kit. I thought, man, these drums are awesome. So fast forward to the late 90s when Derek and Mike were nice enough to bring me on here. And the thing I really wanted to be, and this is in your days when we still had Afro percussion, and it was the one-stop shopping that you had Adams here, which are the best microphones and marimbas. So for someone like me who was basically jack of all trades, master of none, I wanted to play around on everything. And that's the thing. I think, Pearl, like Keio said, then you add in the fact that it's such a family vibe and you're so supported. It is the best reason to play drums.
Same. Pearl. I mean, the first kit I ever had was Pearl. First drum I ever marched on. I come from a drum corps background like Tom. First snare drum I ever touched, the marching snare, was a Pearl drum. I remember when the FFX came out because we were us old dudes. We remember when the lugs were still bolted to the shelf and blowing lug casings because we cranked down Kevlar heads too much. But first, I mean, I remember cutting out the CZX double bass kit, adding modern drummer and sliding into the old Trapper Keeper to cover up the Lamborghini. You know what I mean? That was man. There's a lot in that. It's always been Pearl, man. And like, I wouldn't be here. And I got a shout out. If it wasn't for Tom Hurst, I wouldn't be here. He's the one that kind of mentioned me to Mike and brought me on. And it's always been my dream. And here I am, sir.
The thing that I notice is that as we all look for, and just like he mentioned, about the people that you're working for to comment on your gear. And just as of like 2 months ago, an engineer I hadn't been with in a couple of years, Chuck Ainley, one of our greats, and I was over at the castle and went in. And he came out after we did the drum sounds, and I had the maple gum, and he said, Ed, he said, I know everyone else says I didn't have to do anything to it, and you've laughed, everything. He said, I didn't have to do anything to it.
Yeah.
He said they just sounded right on the floor, and that's the way they were recorded. So that is a testimony not only for Pearl, but for me too, because that is what speaks for me, and it's state of art.
I got to elaborate on that as well. Exactly what Eddie said, and that, there's a reason I've been with this company 36 years now. And exactly what Eddie said in that, so many situations where the front of house engineer, a live situation, what you were talking about, or in a studio where the engineer just pulls the faders up and said, there it is, sounds great. No doctoring, whether it's my old Masters kit, Maple, or a Masters Custom, or the 90s, the Masters Custom, Derek, you remember those. And of course, the reference kits, every one of those, in every situation, the engineers will always say, man, your stuff just sounds great. I don't have to do a lot of doctoring and fixing. They just push the faders up. It sounds great. And so that's been one consistent thing for me all these years, was just different engineers being happy with it. And just making me look good,
I wanted to say this so badly, but you guys really helped me with charity events, which, other companies may not necessarily do that. And locally helping the community and also helping education too, because you guys are pretty much like untouchable when it comes to that, when it comes to providing for schools. That to me is really that's the goal right there. So it's all, reciprocal in the right way. So props for that.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. On behalf of Pearl, I can speak for everybody on the company side that the feeling of mutual love and respect is coming right back to you guys. So thank you guys very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that.